How's it going, guys? My name is Graham, and welcome to Finding the References, a special series where we look for all the secrets, references, and Easter eggs hidden within the Henry Stickmin series. Today, we're doing Infiltrating the Airship. Something interesting and worth talking about, the original Flash version included this preloader slideshow that gave some additional insight into Henry being taken in by the government. Henry must be taken alive. Warning, may be considered to be extremely lucky. Remember your training. Don't mess up this time, Ralph. His house is being heavily surveilled, with cameras in his bedroom, backyard, front door, and garage. And within that garage, we could see Henry's iconic scooter and the police car he would have stolen in the badass bust-out rank of escaping the prison. I imagine that if this opening sequence were redone and adapted into this new collection, this would have been removed to maintain the potential of any continuity and all ranks being canon. So instead of redoing that and fitting it in, it's just kind of cut all together in the collection. I guess it was deemed that what we see in the existing intro was good enough for setting up the game. Many have pointed to the file they have on Henry as being evidence for one particular ending being canon. But this is actually totally randomized. You will see small references to different potential endings on each playthrough, further building on that idea that all endings are canon. This is taken a step further in the remaster, with the images on this notebook being tied directly to whichever ranks you most recently achieved in the other games of the collection. As I move through the game, same as always, I will only be including paths and fails that actually include references. So right off of this first opening branch, if we first choose the earpiece, acid itself is rather generic. I just like the pun in the fail text, I can't stand acid either. And then the vacuum, which it took a while to hear what this guy was actually saying. I think I nailed it down. In this small cutscene, with the members of the Tophat clan around the table, many of the top hats themselves around this table have been changed to be a little more distinct. We see Winston Davis. He's really fallen from grace since his time with the police. And really, that's directly Henry's fault. We knew what happened to his old partner, Ted McAdams, taking a security job at the museum, but poor Winston fell far further after that incident. The bio may even be joking about the fact that there have been so many failed trials and that singular success, referring to multiple investigations. I mean, a success from our standpoint. He may have ended up in jail. And apropos of nothing, just kind of throwing it out there, I want this mug. I just think it looks like a good size, shape, color, and with a simple yet effective logo, while still remaining obscure enough that coworkers seeing it on my desk wouldn't think I was into some weird nonsense. Fun for anyone who's in on it, easy enough to explain away to those who aren't. Hook me up. Having some weird piece of futuristic sci-fi tech in every game has become a recurring element. One thing per game comes Gadget Gabe approved. This game would be the transdimensionalizer. I also believe these have never worked. Gabe might not be the most reliable seal of approval. With the glue, Winston Davis mentions in that same cutscene how new he is.
Well, I'm still kind of new here, so I'm not really sure what to say.
There is the extra quick little addition of a goon commenting on a jammed door. Before, we knew Henry was running from something or someone, but never saw anything specific. It's kind of a silly gag that the door jams, but it has a more clear reason for Henry to bail. The gravity bubble, this isn't a reference, but as a fun fact, Puffballs said in our little interview that this was his personal favorite fail. It's just generally a fun concept, and the idea of the buttons being so unclear and the resulting fail text is something he's very proud of. When choosing Charles, other than just being the first of many amazing contributions from Charles, it sounds like he's singing the beginning of The Planning in Rossini's William Tell Overture. Quickly while we're here, Charles's helicopter targeting system looks so familiar. I thought maybe it was Star Wars or Star Fox. Maybe it's not a reference, but if someone recognizes that one, please help me out. The Robo Helper is a obvious robotic version of Tails from Sonic the Hedgehog with copyright-friendly sound effects. Remote access, where the hidden door opens from, had to be slightly changed because of the new background, and the fail text was also changed. Originally, it was a line from Quad City DJ's Space Jam theme song, but maybe being a word-for-word part of the lyrics would have had some sort of copyright or trademark issue. Instead, it's been changed into a small coding joke with, whoops, wrong subroutine. Choosing Bone Melt. And once we end up in this room, Ninja Star, while not being made particularly obvious, I believe the Ninja Star is a very general reference and tribute to Stickpage. Most of the games in the series have been sponsored by them in the past. Their website is usually in the bottom corner there. One of their splash screens for their branding included a Ninja Star, which is one we even saw in some of these Henry Stickmin games, and so I think that's Puff just kind of leaning into that a little bit. The fail text reads, "How could you miss? He was 3 feet in front of you," which is a quote from the animated version of Mulan, and if you click on the MULAN within that sentence, you earn an achievement. Famous movie line. Well, maybe not that famous. Falcon Kick.
Falcon!
This is a reference to Captain Falcon's down B move in Smash Bros., but it's also a callback to Stealing the Diamond, where Henry attempted to do the Falcon Punch.
Falcon Punch!
This is further built on with the fail text, "I think you put too much energy into it that time." With the punch, Henry barely made any flame. Here, with the kick, he overshoots and burns himself up entirely. He's trying to get that Goldilocks Falcon move middle ground sorted out. Spook! After one of my own personal favorite successes, we end up down in the vent with a Mass Effect-like conversation wheel. Make animal noise. It's not a success or a fail, actually, but you earn the achievement Barnyard Blitz, which itself is a reference to Ballroom Blitz. But none of it seems to have anything to do with anything. Making animal noises is not a Mass Effect joke. My best guess here is that you make a sheep noise because the main character in Mass Effect is Commander Shepard. It's a little abstract, pretty funny. If we reroute the power, this is the correct option, and less of a reference and just a funny nonsense happenstance. Charles reroutes the power to a random room and ruins the photos in this dark room. We now know that his name is Alcohol, so he's alcohol. I have no idea what these photos have to do with anything, why this guy is named after liquor in general, or if there's any larger Joker payoff there. I don't think so. I think it's just a bad luck for this one guy, just caught up in all the chaos. Flashbang. While that itself isn't exclusively a Counter-Strike reference, when it's combined with Fire in the Hole, that screen flash, and a ringing sound, it's all from Counter-Strike.
Fire in the hole!
This was re-recorded so as to not come directly from that copyrighted source.
Fire in the hole!
A copyrighted Counter-Strike source? Ha ha ha, I'm funny! Moving on to the banana bomb. Everything from the name, design, bouncing, and countdown are all directly from the Worms franchise. I appreciate the small physics correction to having the exploded airship fall backwards now, as it's no longer being thrusted forward. And if you click on that fail screen text, we get a jingle and a pronouncement that references Donkey Kong 64 when collecting golden bananas. This was recreated pretty faithfully here. The music isn't much different.
Oh, banana. Oh, banana.
And that N64 logo, the trademarked one, was swapped out for a silly recreation that is instead the Tophats. Doesn't make a lot of sense, like 3D spatially. You know, it's a cylinder instead of anything blocky, but it still works. The Force Gun. At this stage, Puff had already made the switch to calling them ranks instead of endings, so the ranks didn't need to be renamed the way they were in the previous installments. And here we earn Government-Supported Private Investigator. Going back to Infiltrating the Airship, the very beginning branch, we can choose Cannonball, and then Chair. The way the chair spins in place before taking off is very Sonic-like. The Flash version even included a quick Sonic sound effect, but that was done away with for the copyright-friendly remaster, and I like how the guy in the gray hard hat was changed to instead be wearing a regular hard hat underneath a top hat. It's necessary to maintain both style and function when you're a part of this crew. Boost. The big purple booster is taken from Diddy Kong Racing. You get the big boost when stacking 3 booster balloons in that game. And while it seems pretty generic, it's almost totally confirmed in the Flash version through this very specific selection sound effect, and somewhat the boosting sound itself. When those are replaced, it's much less obvious. And then for some reason, we switch over to a Sonic reference with "gotta go fast" being the fail text. Gotta layer all that together, why not? If we eject and then do nothing, there is just a sly joke about having 2 QuickTime events in a row, which the game actually sticks to. This path has no more QuickTime events after completing that second one. Metal Fist, I think it would have been cooler if you turned into a rhino. With a little extra text at the bottom that is in the Flash version only, rhinos are difficult to draw. I thought maybe this was a reference to The Amazing Spider-Man 2 when looking at the collection only. It turns out Infiltrating the Airship came out before the first trailer for The Amazing Spider-Man was even available, and when looking at that extra line in the Flash version, I think it's just that Puff didn't get the chance to execute it how he originally planned. Maybe he tried drawing a metal rhino a few times and didn't like the look of it and just scrapped it. No one would have ever known. Warp. It might be unclear what a little white Lego brick has to do with warping, but this was actually an ability in Lego Racers. It was even a white brick specifically in that game. The blue dome that covers you, the wavy dimension you soar through are all lifted straight from Lego Racers. It's funny when nothing else that's going on has to do with like go-karts or anything, but hey, I like that flexibility, fitting in those references wherever you can. Beans. The can itself says bean there, which is a simple and effective pun, which is lost in the remaster, and locked up here is an old friend of ours, but I'll talk about that a little later. Metal Bend. The idea itself is a Last Airbender reference, with the fail text, "You're a bender, Harry," a quote from Gandalf. This is kind of layered. It's a play on "You're a wizard, Harry" from Hagrid and Harry Potter, and the memes of swapping out the word wizard for any inane thing, as well as the meme of misattributing quotes, especially to characters from other universes. This whole format popularized through a similar back-ass words quote, all just reworked to be more Henry related. It's less of a layered reference, and more just building off of this stacked chain of memes that people have built up over the years. And I personally can't not read it as "you're" instead of "your." You're a bender, Henry. Hagrid is too ingrained in my brain. The Techno Trousers. These come directly from an old Wallace and Gromit short, although they've been renamed simply to Robot Pants now. Makes that a little bit less on the nose, but it's still unmistakable. Rocket Jump. While rocket jumping was a physics exploit popularized in Quake, Valve made it an actual feature in TF2, with the soldier using it as a legitimate and rather crucial skill. When we encounter the right-hand man on this bridge, there is a horse neigh, although I have no earthly idea why. We're presented with the battle options of Dirk and Yo-Yo. Choosing Dirk initiates a Final Fantasy themed battle, while Yo-Yo is instead earthbound. Each of these is then layered with its own references. I will start with Dirk. Choosing Blitz, when right-hand man shoots you with the chain gun, it does leaked damage. His weapon was also changed to a chain gun instead of this Gatling gun-like thing. I don't know guns. It's kind of a recurring shortcoming in my playing of this series. Tools, Henry equips a hockey mask and chainsaw like Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th. If we instead went down the yo-yo branch, you can bash. This is very specifically a Ness item in Mother 2, and the fail text mocks us for thinking it would actually be an effective weapon in battle. Tell that to my friend Kirk when he cheeses our smash battles with the yo-yo. I doubt Kirk will ever see this, but you're officially called out, bud. Defend. The best offense is a good defense. It's just a funny warping of a common piece of advice. Winning either battle will earn its own separate achievement. Dirk, then Tools, earns Last Reverie, changed from Last Fantasy in the Flash version, while Yo-Yo, then Goods, earns Bound to Earth. Each description just being a play on the series or franchise or game that they're riffing on. In their descriptive texts, should have kept you locked up, and oh my goodness, each having their own character references. Lock Cole is in Final Fantasy VI, and Ness is from Mother 2. Beef Up! Our new Beef Up is much healthier. This one comes in low sodium, although that probably just means it's high in fat. They always trick me with that switcheroo. I'm on to you, food marketers. Glider. The general design, especially with a big initial in the center, is just like the ones introduced in Mario Kart 7. One of the boxes in the background has poison, do not eat. After using the parachute, the fail text is simply Butterfingers. Clicking on that word makes a few Butterfinger candy bars pop up, and you earn an achievement. This soundbite is actually from Spider-Man 2 of all things.
Easy now.
Butterfingers. Butterfingers.
Out of context, it seems so random I would never guess that. Interestingly, it wasn't even re-recorded or swapped out in the remaster. It's about 1/4 of a second long, so I'm sure no one will notice. The missile. It was changed from something somewhat generic looking, although still quite cartoony, to a design that is much more directly a Worms reference. I believe that was the intent in the Flash version as well, but now there's no denying it. Tank. This white tank has always been a Newgrounds reference, especially in the way Henry bobs up and down in it as he drives away. It It's pretty well the exact same animation as when the tank men would drive around in the official Newgrounds preloaders. But the selection screen redesign really sells that overall comparison. Henry's pardon is dated 2013, which is the year the game was released originally, and I just like noting that for the sake of mapping out the overall Stickmin timeline and continuity. There's a quick joke at the bottom here that's easy to miss, explaining that this pardon is only valid if the recipient can properly pronounce library. Something else amazing I only just noticed for the first time while making this video, despite the fact that it's in both the original and the remaster, I simply didn't notice before, we can totally see the tower from the CCC in the background. Across all these games so far, we're getting a really strong sense of where things exist spatially. There's some arguments to be made for temporally, but I think at this point that's also quite determinable. The nighttime end scene for Relentless Bounty Hunter was changed to daytime for the continuation of the running gag with the end screen suns having a shoop-de-whoop meme. And also just for carrying on the fact that that scene was ending in the daytime. But I'd like to think it's mostly for the shoop-de-sun. The sun-de-whoop? I'm not sure what to call it. If we choose dummies, this instead earns Rapidly Promoted Executive, where Henry instead teams up with the Tophats. I tried to zoom in on a few key documents throughout the game, like this one. It seems by this point Puff had switched to doing scribbles instead of hiding tiny text jokes in the game. On the desk, we can see the beginnings of a devious master Tophat plan. Step 1, Step 2, Step 3, Profit, and Step 4, Unknown. This is a reference to the Underpants Gnome's secret plan in South Park, but in their plan they swapped the ordering of a blank space and profit. On the computer, which features a Tophat operating system instead of Windows, and Dropbox is instead replaced by Plopbox, we can also see that the background is set to a very simplistic version of Bliss, the default background Windows has frequently used on devices since 2000. Small tangential fact, because of that, there have been arguments made that it is the most viewed photograph of all time. You can click on the TF2 icon on the computer screen for a bleh from the TF2 Scout, also earning an achievement. Back at the initial airship with the sticky hand, it's not a reference, but I just love these things. Whenever I was allowed to pick a toy at the dentist, I grabbed one of these. When we left, I would slap it against the inside of the car a few times, and then it was too lint-riddled to ever use again before we even got home. I did that every time. 0 point energy. I just find that kind of funny. The name is a concept in theoretical physics, but turning it into a literal point of the hand is pretty hilarious. But the credit for the pun goes to the Incredibles. In the Flash version, we saw Henry with a glove of sorts, much more like Syndrome, whereas here, he's just using his regular hand. Ball and chain leads to the fake-out ending of lightning-quick larcenist. It's never been made clear what the deal is with this teddy bear or why the Tophats felt it was necessary to stick him in their safe. He kind of reminds me of Mr. Burns' Bobo, but that might just be a result of being a somewhat generic teddy. Not really sure why Rupert appears to begin aiming his gun at us. I mean, dang dude, we tried our best. A Winner Is You comes from the 1986 NES game Pro Wrestling, which itself is a result of a poor translation into English, similar to something like All Your Base Are Belong to Us. That's it for Sticky Hand. 2 fails, literally no successes. So we'll instead go to the grapple gun. For the Joy Buzzer, the original fail text, Alan, please add details, is a reference to Hitman Blood Money. There's this pretty random object, the kitchen crate holster, which apparently a dev, Alan, missed this note and forgot to add details. So instead we have the note making it into the game. This has been changed to remind me to never shake your hand. So he either did away with the joke because it was too obscure, or this is a remaster payoff, and hey, Alan finally added those missing details. The bombs, which I thought at first were Zelda bombs, but they are instead Bomberman. This is really sold by the way the bomb throbs and expands before exploding. I hate that sentence. If you're unfamiliar with that series, bombs in-game explode in grids, with the basic pattern being a small cross. Henry has nowhere to run, he's in a straight line with the bomb, cornered, and that would be a very common way of blowing yourself up in Bomberman. Although I'm not convinced that's distinct enough to rule out the Zelda bombs. And in fact, the fail text refers to remote bombs, which are something you can specifically get in the Minish Cap and Breath of the Wild. Wait, I'm pretty sure this is the first time in a QuickTime event or otherwise that doing nothing resulted in a success. You can grab the key to begin a special quest. I'll save that for after the fails to explain in greater detail. I love the change of the computer icon instead being more like the DVD video bouncing logo and just narrowly missing the corner. The computer. Henry simply goes and starts playing a game of Civ 5 with the fail text, "Just one more turn," and for anyone who has ever booted up that game, holy cow can it ever suck up your evening. Maybe even a week or month if you're not careful. I really like the faithful recreation of that hex gameplay, including the little city of Stickholm. There are the same folders as before with some additions. Secret files, research, Miss ASCII, RPG Maker 1998, pirated MP3s, torrented movies. I mean, these are bad guys. And downloaded cars. Hey, I mean, if they're willing to download a movie, why would they stop there? And cat gifts? Oh, super evil. Really though, that was like the stupidest ad of all time way back when. Obviously I would download a car. Through the vent and choosing teleporter, a staple of the Stickmin series, it's been featured in every game so far, going all the way back to crossing the pit. You know, the non-Henry progenitor of the series. Stretchums, that really grinds my gears, is a pretty generic saying, as well as a fun play on words. Maybe it's a play on the whole Peter Griffin thing, I don't know. It's a common enough saying to not necessarily be a reference. But I also wanted to point out the little tiny raffle hidden at the bottom. Magic pencil. While many different games have had magic drawing pencils like Scribblenauts or Harold and the Purple Crayon, this one appears to most directly be referencing the Frankendoodle episode of SpongeBob. Leap. This room has been changed and we can no longer see who is in the holding cells, including that passed out guy. I really wanted to know what his deal was. We were robbed by never getting a fainted guy bio. Wizard magic. Failing in a spectacularly disastrous way is something that might occur to your D&D character when attempting something difficult and rolling a 1, which is a critical negative. Hack. This is simply filled with great puns. What, shocking, current, and ohm. The commitment to that bit is electrifying. And hovering over that text earns you the lol achievement, Retro Glove, which is a Nintendo Power Glove, which was itself a NES accessory, and of course has been renamed. At least without prison bar style cells, that guy no longer has an easy view to laugh at us. After using the paperizer, in the Flash version, for some totally unknown reason, there appears to be a yellow canoe? I don't know what's up with that. We have a gyroid from Animal Crossing, which has remained across both versions, while every other thing around the room appears to be totally new. Although I think this one in particular is simply an alternate, more decorated gyroid. We have the golden gun from 007 Goldeneye, a Halo energy sword, and a shotgun in between them that feels rather generic, but might be more specific than I realize. With Goldeneye being a Nintendo 64 game and Halo being Xbox, maybe the shotgun is something to do with PlayStation? Then we also have a giant coin that is likely from Mario, but could apply to so many different games. This is something I've never really thought about before, but I booted up 3D All-Stars the other day and was messing around with Super Mario 64, and I suddenly realized the scale in that game makes it so that the coins are like 3 feet tall. So I have to think this is joking about the in-game scale of coins. The Fez purple jacket and Viking helmet are also rather generic, and while the golden Tophat seems significant, I couldn't place it to any specific characters in the bios. Mr. Goldblum had a yellow hat, but it never had a golden sheen the way this one does. On the walls we have a bunch of references in the paintings. We have the Final Destination stage from Smash Melee, which Puff has acknowledged on Twitter as being intended as a reference to the Fox Only No Items meme. After that, we have the Mona Lisa, a long cat meme, the TF2 Scout, more accurately the Scout Face or Derp Scout, American Gothic by Grant Wood, and more of Piet Madrain's squares, which we also saw in Stealing the Diamond. Phew, there's a lot in this room. Now we can look at some of the actual options. The Claw Pack releases a mechanical version of Kazooie, who is carried around in a similar blue backpack by Banjo, with the sound effects also being very Kazooie-like, with the fail text joking about it definitely being a claw and not a bird. Gravity Manipulator. This was originally Gravity Gun, which is directly from Half-Life. In-game, there are 2 options with the gun, one button that draws things in and one that launches them away, as described in the fail. leaving Shrink and Grow to be the only remaining and successful option. Shell is then directly a green shell from most Mario games. Propane Tank itself is generic, but the fail text is very directly referencing King of the Hill, with Hank Hill working with propane, always talking about propane and propane accessories. It even includes his classic, "Tell ya what." We fail floating away on the umbrella, which as a concept is very Mary Poppins-like, with the fail text referencing her song, "A Spoonful of Sugar." Armor, previously Power Armor, is referring to the T-45 Power Armor from the Fallout series. As we're plummeting to Earth, we land in the midst of the CCC's operations with another tower seen in the distance. It's likely also theirs. There's a load of fighting and a crazy amount of bios. I had to watch this scene like 8 times to find and click all of them. We have versions of Ryu and Ken, with our Kent character here doing his signature shuriken on Ryu. Their bios both refer to specific Street Fighter plot beats. Samuel Mundy, our TF2 sniper stand-in, returns from stealing the diamond, although this time he is murderized by our newly appearing Jacques Latouche, our new TF2 spy stand-in, who we haven't had in these games before. I don't believe the spy was ever named in TF2, although we do know he's French, so Jacques is a good French name, with Latouche playing around with the idea of him needing to get up close with enemies. Backstabbing enemies is the spy's most reliable way of dispatching them, especially when sneaking up on snipers. In the CCC office, we have this new bulletin board. Most things are left totally generic and just as scribbles, but we have a poster from the museum's dino exhibit from the previous game, and another recurrence of Newgrounds' Angraface. L cut MK2, which I don't really know what that means, then cuts the airship out of the ground and launches it into space. We should take our problems and push them somewhere else. Directly quoting the heavily memed Patrick Starr. DEB, Deb, for some reason was changed from Dark Energy Blaster to Dark Energy Bomb, but it's still a cataclysmic event that wipes out everything. It's actually the only fail in the series without a fail text. That's how thoroughly it wiped everything out. We have a scratched out disc that then summons Gaben, referring to the common nickname given to Valve's Gabe Newell. Loading this causes everything to crash. The file is not found inside the HL3 folder. A joke about Half-Life 3 not existing. Kinda sad that that joke still works in the remaster 7 years later. Prototype summons a few flying jetpack wearing soldiers. They were apparently designed by brothers Mert and Bert Steele. Cool names, guys. And were then third jetted by the rando Mordecai Booker. Couldn't think of a better way to say third wheeled without wheels. I don't think this is an exact reference, but losing your expensive military-issued war machine in the desert when you stopped for a quick bathroom break is a shared story beat with the Tankmen series.
I knew it. You lost her, didn't you?
Well, I wasn't gonna piss in the tank. I just temporarily forgot where I left her.
Considering the Newgrounds references, that could be an homage. The option results in successfully stealing the ruby and the pure-blooded thief ending. Now we can circle back to the key on the desk. Grabbing that begins your quest. The key is used to free our boy Dave Panpa, who later drops a flash drive in the vault. Later, when the CCC gets involved, when they are choosing their discs, the flash drive will be present if you collected it. Grab the flash drive here and remember the code 1214. This note is addressed to Carl, and while we actually have 3 Carls in Fleeing the Complex, there's Karlov Chernik, Carl the Clown, and Carl Pinkerton. None of them seem to really apply to this situation. It appears to be a character we just simply never meet. At the beginning, choose the earpiece path. After the vacuum, we can enter that code on the wall. Something I didn't really notice until editing, the Flash version used a very iconic Zelda jingle for unlocking the door. And I really like hearing Puff's interpretations of those, making it very similar but still distinct enough to not have any copyright issues. He's really good at that. Go back to the cannonball, and during this chase sequence, we can enter the now open door. Through this, we receive a special item. It was once the Biggoron sword along with a Zelda fanfare, which is an item from the Ocarina of Time, acquired through a series of item swaps and trades. In the remaster, it is now the big ol' sword, and the fanfare is altered to be copyright friendly. similar to how we saw with the shovel in Breaking the Bank. Importantly, this is the first game in the series where the various endings actually have completely different results. No matter what, Henry always ends up the complex in the next episode. Previously, every ending led to escaping the prison or stealing the diamond. These endings are very unique. No matter what, we always end up at the complex in the following episode. But I love that Puff not only acknowledges the uniqueness of these branches, but ensured all of completing the mission is built around paying off every possible story branch. The density of bios in these games is getting rather high, so this section will take a bit to cover. As usual, I'll only be covering the bios that actually have references included. Charles Calvin, we learn Charles's last name. There's no deeper anything there, it's just neat. It claims he's both one of the youngest and most experienced, which doesn't make a lot of sense. But when you really start to think about the in-game reality, it does appear that he's flying pretty well non-stop. So if he's their go-to guy, and he's always up in the air, yeah, he would have a lot of experience. Rupert Price, he was one of the police officers who's speaking to Henry in that opening scene alongside Dave Pampa. He's now working for the military. Jeffrey Plum, his large head makes it difficult for him to see, which makes no sense. Puff does what he can to distinguish these simple stick figure characters, and he gave this guy both a big head and squinty eyes. And I think he just decided to joke that those two things are somehow related, even though that doesn't make sense. Magnus Eriksson shares his name with the Swedish soccer player, but I doubt that's a real reference. It's not played on in the bio at all. Although, on closer inspection, Durbert Daniels, I just love that name, is busy playing the new mobile game Between Us 2. Innersloth is also known for their hit game Among Us, which actually just had a sequel announced shortly after the release of the Henry Stickmin Collection. You might notice that it's listed as a mobile game. Back when Puff first started working on this years ago and was probably writing up those bios, it was at that point only a mobile game, and the idea of a sequel was probably pretty far off. It's funny that that's now a reality. Handsome Harold is listed as having 18 charisma, which also leads me to believe that his top hat is intentionally somewhat shaped like a D20, but that might just be my own wishful thinking for it all to layer into some nuanced D&D reference. Two-Ton Tony. It's suspected that he is the same Tony from Stealing the Diamond, Tony Franz. There, he was an undercover mafia money launderer. He switched because he liked the hours and style. The nickname seems like kind of a generic mafia nickname, but it might be a riff on Fat Tony from The Simpsons, or maybe even based on the real-life boxer Two-Ton Tony. Cup of Joe shares his name with a slang term for a cup of coffee. He's a guy who drinks coffee. It's the sort of sparing joke that Puff used in this series that gets a kick out of me every time. Like Hatchman, the only role he serves in this series is to pop his head out of the hatch, so his name and bio are all just about the hatch. I love it. Terrence Suave has been made much more suave with the addition of a golden gun, although it is not the 007 golden gun seen earlier. Billy G and the description of them being not my lover are a play on Michael Jackson's song Billie Jean. Trunk, TRNK, between his one giant arm and his name, this appears to be a mashup of Left 4 Dead 2's Tank and Charger. Harry Butts. That's just unfortunate. No wonder he wanted revenge. Mr. Blank might be a play on Clue's Mrs. White, wielding a lead pipe, although his is rather rusty, which was never a part of the game. Naruto Kage is a play on Naruto, doing a full-on anime run like he would in that series. Bob Hoss is a play on Bob Ross, and it looks like he's been poorly drawn with details missing and lines all over the place. Bob Ross was a comic artist who would provide encouragement about not worrying too much, maybe if your lines were a little sloppy, with the bio playing off that. I really love the way that that joke plays on itself in a few different layers. Mr. Brimley is just simply a wordplay about the brim of his hat. Nate Box, having not passed his close quarters combat training, is a play on the general gaming concept of hitboxes, and he's about to get bashed up close by Sledge McRush with his appropriate weapon of choice, a sledgehammer. Close combat, Nate Box, hitbox, that's what they're going with there. Quick draw. In that battle sequence, he lives up to his name, quick on the draw, but missing almost everything. I also like the way that our gunslinger-like cowboy has this silly in-between of a cowboy hat and a top hat. Really adds some unique style. And Goo Guy, I think this is simply mocking the idea of nicknames, particularly within the series. With awesome nicknames like Quick Draw and Slice, he just ended up with the worst name possible. Wilson Stone's bio simply confirms that there are different branches of the CCC, and at the very end here, our boy, locked away in the cell, Dave Panpa. His story so far started with him handing Henry the cake in prison. Next, he was working as a guard in the World War II section of the museum, then running and knocking himself unconscious, and here he is, yet again, captured by the Tophats. Somehow, for some reason, I don't think that's ever explained. And with that, we've covered what is by far the densest of these games so far. I would not be overly surprised if I missed things, there's so much going on here. Originally, the plan was at the top of every episode, I would cover anything I missed in the previous installment. The new plan is once I've covered each individual episode of the Henry Stickmin Collection, there'll be one final capper video that includes any extra details or missed references. That way we don't have to interrupt the flow of these individual installments of finding the references. We can get straight into things relevant to that video. Fleeing the Complex is a similar length to this one, but I'm still a little frightened. I think there might be more to cover in that one than infiltrating the airship, and then completing the mission is beyond terrifying. Unclear if that's going to be 2 or 3 videos, there's just so much going on there. As always, thank you guys so much for your support with this series. It's pretty cool, the Stealing the Diamond one actually got tweeted out by an official YouTube account. Having that level of recognition and acknowledgement is super cool, and that's absolutely thanks to you guys liking, sharing, commenting, and all the good stuff that you're doing here. So if you want to continue to help me out, yeah, keep doing what you're doing, please. And above and beyond that, a thank you to patrons of the channel. That support means a lot. I do what I can to make that worthwhile, but it is more of a tip jar. In the past, I've posted full transcripts of any interviews I've done with developers. It would be really fun to start asking you guys questions on the Patreon that I could then share with the developers before I interview them. Maybe we start doing live streams over there too, Patreon exclusive. There's also a Patreon exclusive Discord channel. Trying to do what I can to make that worth it. Thank you all so much for watching. Fleeing the Complex will be out in 2 weeks. I have something else fun planned in between, and I'll see you again soon.